Have you ever wondered why people who are hurt sometimes hurt others? Dr. Gabor Maté shares something life-changing. Just because we've been through pain doesn't mean we can't cause it to. But healing is possible if we're willing to open our hearts and truly see each other. This message could change how you see yourself and the world. Don't miss this.
If you've ever felt unheard, unseen, or like the wounds from your past still hold you back, you're not alone. This space is for you. Here, we heal, we grow, and we rediscover who we truly are. Beyond the pain, beyond the past. And if you're ready to step into your healing journey and finally embrace your authentic self, hit that subscribe button. Because your inner child matters, and together, we can rewrite your story. And before we dive in, I want you to affirm this. Drop "I am healing" in the comments. Let's remind ourselves and each other.
And I also think that, that because of pain that has happened to me, it doesn't mean that it's impossible for me to cause pain to somebody else. Like, it's almost like saying, well, if you're Jewish, you can't be racist. We're like, no, you can be Jewish and you can be racist against African Americans. We have multiple parts, right? And it's so easy to say, no, I'm just this one. And I think what humanity potentially is being asked for now, as hard as it is to see, wow, I have all these different parts in me. Yes, of course I'm this, and I have capacities to do this.
Which takes me back to the Old Testament, or what we call the Tanakh, or the Torah, the 5 books of Moses.
Yeah. And for me, that's one of the more difficult things. If I'm in an argument with my partner, I want to think I'm the right one, and she shouldn't dislike me or hate me or be upset with me. And it's so hard to stop and say, let me understand her perspective.
Yeah.
Let me stop for a moment and see why she's upset with me.
Yeah.
And I wish that there was a way that I could also better understand the sensitivity of some of the Israeli community right now because of that. Like, don't criticize us. Like, anything that criticizes us is not allowed. I was like, help me understand, because I do feel like that's not really what they want. And I do feel like we are all part of the problem. We're all part of the solution. And how do we move forward in a way that leads us to the world that is better for the whole generation of kids that are to come? And I don't think we're doing it in the best way possible. And I think
the people who could really address that, but I'm quoting mutual acquaintances of ours, Dan Siegel, the psychiatrist. He'll point out, and Stephen Porges, another psychologist.
Yeah.
They'll point out that at times of pressure and fear, our perspective narrows.
Mm-hmm.
And the part of our brain that takes over is more the fear-based and defensive-based, flight or fight. So we lose the governance of our prefrontal cortex, which is capable of taking a broader view.
Yeah.
So on the time, and oh boy, let me tell you, this is an Israeli friend of mine, who I quoted before. She contacted me, and she's the one with a daughter, and they live in the north of Israel, where, as a result of recent events, people, they've decided to evacuate some communities owing to a threat of further violence, not just in the south, but also in the north of Israel. And she writes to me, very honestly, she says, "Dear Gabor, I really appreciate the things you wrote. The days here are unbearable. We moved in with friends because we live in an unprotected zone, surrounded by a garden so beautifully moving. Home no longer feels like a safe place for millions right now." She's talking about Israelis.
Yeah.
She's well aware, by the way, of the Palestinian situation.
Yeah.
But she's describing her own situation.
Yeah.
The rest of the time, I work at a mental health center, and we collapse under the referrals and the meetings and the frantic courses we take to treat anger and trauma. She says, I'm exhausted, she writes. And she says, and I wrote her some words of support, and she says, the things you wrote are beautiful, but perspective expands when people are not under physical threat. Right now, I feel under physical threat, and so do those close to me, and my point of view is very narrow.
Wow.
Now that's a very honest statement.
Yeah.
She's making no apology.
Yeah.
She's not taking a political stance.
Yeah.
She's saying right now my perspective is very narrow.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to identify with that narrow perspective, but she understands that under the pressure, that's what happens. Now, most people are not that self-aware.
Yeah.
As Dan and Stephen would point out, people's perspective narrow.
Of course.
And it becomes subsumed in group identification.
Yeah.
And thoughts of revenge.
Yeah.
And thought of hurting the other.
Yeah.
That's just, you know the Jewish holiday, Passover,
Mm-hmm.
which celebrates the, whether historical or mythical,
Yeah.
liberation of Jews from Egyptian slavery. Mitzrayim, the word for Hebrew. So the Hebrew word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, you know what it means?
Mm.
It means a narrow place.
Mm.
So under threat,
Yeah.
or when we perceive as under threat, we go into this narrow place.
Yeah.
That's a place of slavery.
Yeah.
Where we're enslaved to our unconscious.
Yeah.
Where we're governed by our emotions.
Yeah.
And where the heart closes down. And, oh my God,
Yeah.
if there was ever a time to actually people to open their hearts,
Yeah.
to not get stuck in a narrow place, to not repeat the past,
Yeah.
to not to perceive themselves only as victims, but in relationship with the other,
Yeah.
and have the willingness to examine my role in that relationship, which is all we ask for in any marriage, by the way, or in any relationship. The practical difference is that one side wields enormously more power than the other. That's just how it is. Israel has the fourth most powerful military in the world. We're talking after the US and China and Russia. It's a nuclear power, which nobody talks about, but also nobody questions. It was created maybe as an act of self-resurrection on a national level, if you want to see it that way, but at the cost of crucifying another people. Couldn't have been done any other way, no matter what anybody imagines. An occupation that's been going on now for over 50 years, where most of the Jews that Palestinians see wear uniforms, carry guns, oppress them, kill them, destroy their homes. Where in Gaza, and it almost tires me to go over the history of Gaza again, but it's not what people imagine. It's not this, Israel didn't leave Gaza, they just moved to the outskirts of it. And they've maintained the concentration camp. The Gazans have no freedom to move, no freedom to import, to export, no freedom to control what comes into their land. They can't fish in their own sea. They're surveyed. They're bombed regularly. Hundreds of their children are being killed on a regular basis, over and over and over and over again. And these are people who can look across the barbed wire and look at the fields that their forebears used to till.
We can open our, to the extent we can open our heart beyond our frame.
So what's their experience like? And the only Jews they see are snipers and tanks carrying the Jewish flag, the Star of David. Even if they hate Jews. And by the way, when I was there, and other people can tell you this, including Israelis who visited there, most Palestinians don't hate Jews. Some do. But even those who do, can I equate them with the anti-Semites of Eastern Europe? The Jews never hurt anybody in Europe. They were simply the victims of race hatred. But when the only Jews you see shoot you when you demonstrate peacefully, which is what happened in Gaza over and over again, the world didn't pay attention. But Gazans would march up to the barrier with flags and without weapons, and their medical workers would be shot by snipers. This happened for years.
Yeah.
The press barely paid attention. So that's the only Jews they see. Could we maybe understand, not agree with, not justify, but could we understand that those are the only Jews they see? Some of them might hate Jews.
Yeah.
And that we don't have to identify that hatred of Jews with the
entire population.
First of all, with the entire population, and number two, with the ancient race hatred of Jews that they experienced in Europe.
Yeah. And that to create a livable region in that area, like I feel for all the Israelis now that live in fear, right? And I feel for the Palestinians that live in fear. And so to create a more livable situation where it's not that fear of a suicide bomber or a bomb coming in, whatever the fears would be, there's a certain shift, a certain orientation shift that feels like it needs to happen. And as you said, the world community is a part of it. I, as an American, am a part of that. I don't leave it up to any one group to do that. I feel like there's a bigger shift. Can you help us understand how that shift might take place, and how, if you're part of the Israeli establishment right now, or leadership, if you're part of the Palestinian leadership, part of the U.S. leadership, what is the expression of a new way of orienting that might give us even just like an inch toward a different path?
I don't want to address anything I say to the leadership. And I tell you why not. Because they don't have good faith.
Okay.
They have interests.
Yeah.
And they serve interests. And they're slavishly beholden to those interests that they
Maybe
serve.
to the people then.
But I love to talk to people, ordinary people.
Great.
The leaders created the present situation. They didn't have to. They didn't have to create this. They did. But to ordinary people, I would say, first of all, have your feelings. You can't help having them. And they're natural responses to your perception of the situation and to the objective situation in many cases. But just as in any relationship, don't let your emotions govern your decisions.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, can you for a moment put your hand on your heart and imagine what it's like to be the other? And I say that to both sides.
Yeah.
I say it more to the Jewish side for two reasons. One is I'm a Jew myself. I'm much more concerned with the emotional and spiritual well-being of my own people. The Old Testament says, thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, you who yourself have been strangers in Egypt. You know the heart of a stranger. Well, a stranger means the other.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to know the heart of the other. Our own scriptures tell us so. Be interested in their experience. You don't have to agree with their interpretation of the experience, but at least know what their experience was and know why they see things the way they do. That Eretz Havatala, the land of milk and honey, it could be.
Yeah.
It actually could be. And there be many other places in the world where there's been tremendous hatred and now there's peace. There's lots of other places where there's been tremendous hatred and still is, unfortunately. Israel is not unique in that sense. Palestine, Israel, is not a unique dynamic. We can see so many places or ethnic identification.
Mm-hmm.
And misperception leads to so many conflicts. But I say to people, open your heart. Just put your hand on your heart. Imagine for a moment what it's like to be the other. Just for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And have some curiosity. I talked about history as not being what happened, but in its original Greek meaning is an inquiry, is an investigation. Do it. The evidence exists. And you don't have to look to the other side to tell you the evidence. Look at the courageous and conscientious historians and journalists on your side who have looked at the truth, documented it, published it, and spoken about it. People just want to be human. They want peace in their hearts. They actually want to love. They feel better when they're open and full of love and expansive. I mean, imagine your own state. Yeah. When do you feel better? I'm not talking about when do you feel right, but when is your body more at ease? It's when we're open. That's what people want. So, allow yourself that state. And in that state, recognize the emotions that you have. At the same time, just for a moment, understand the other, understand the stranger, and the Old Testament I was referring to before is very much a double-edged document.
Sure.
On the one hand, it advocates genocide, and God at some point threatens the Jews because they didn't kill all the local inhabitants of Palestine when they came in as conquerors. And then on the other hand, it says you will not oppress the stranger. Mm-hmm. And the prophets then come along and magnify that statement. So there's plenty in our tradition that would allow us to be proud of who we are and to declare who we are, and at the same time not be at odds with people who at the very least are our cousins.
Today's message reminds us of a hard but beautiful truth. Being hurt doesn't mean we can't hurt others, and healing begins when we're honest about that. We are all made of many parts, some wounded, some wise. And real growth happens when we stop seeing ourselves or others as just one thing. In moments of conflict, empathy can be the bridge, and when fear narrows our view, compassion can open the way forward. The path to healing starts with understanding both ourselves and each other.
Healing takes time, and you don't have to do it alone. If this message resonated with you, know that your journey matters. Be gentle with yourself, keep exploring, and surround yourself with support. If you haven't yet, subscribe and join this community. We're in this together. And before you go, comment, "I am healing," to affirm your growth. You are seen, you are valued, and you are not alone. Healing